Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be taking a look at some of the issues raised in PMQs today, in particular how Rishi Sunak aims to use the standard Tory attack line against Labour of, tax and spend, when he's opened himself up to that same attack without response. So, shorter one today, and that is because, in a sense, not a lot to talk about with today's PMQs. It's basically like one thing. Starmer asked really one question, which Sunak repeatedly failed to answer. Now, that will probably allow Labour to cause the Tories some problems during the general election campaign itself, and certainly the lead up to it. But it posed Sunak no problems today because he used all the old crowd pleasers in response. Essentially, the story of PMQs, as far as the main questions from Starmer and Flynn go, can be summarised as follows. Keir Starmer asked Rishi Sunak how he was going to pay for the £46 billion worth of national insurance cuts that Sunak's promising to introduce in the next parliament, increasing other taxes or cutting pensions. Rishi Sunak refused to answer. Then, Stephen Flynn asked an incredibly ambiguous question about the forces tearing the country apart, which then allowed Sunak to characterise Flynn himself as such a beast to the delight of his own MPs. And then Flynn followed up with another question that Sunak found childishly simple to respond to in a way that met the approval of his own MPs. The end. That was it. That was PMQs. It was surely the easiest PMQ Sunak has ever had and may ever have again. In theory, PMQs is a chance for MPs to ask questions of the Prime Minister on like their response to a serious issue or about the intentions or progress of their policies. In reality, because there is no requirement for the Prime Minister to answer any of these questions in good faith, you may have noticed, and much to the annoyance of a lot of people, the entire exercise is, in reality, an opportunity for opposition MPs, particularly opposition leaders, to try and, weaken the Prime Minister, poke at their weaknesses, with his or her allies then trying to bolster them and everyone else just putting on record some issue important to their local constituency. And how do you attempt to weaken the Prime Minister at PMQs? Well, you can poke at a policy which is proving to be deeply unpopular or ineffective, or better still, poke at an issue which divides the party of the Prime Minister. Ask questions which, no matter how they answer or whether they answer at all, it will upset some of their own MPs or it will make some of their own MPs feel uncomfortable. In a way, it may have been possible that no matter what Starmer decided to ask about today, Sunak was going to fire back with Jeremy Corbyn and Angela Rayner. Oh, his MPs loved it. Like, sometimes you get some noise from the government benches. Basically, when the Prime Minister's on the ropes, loyal MPs will cheer and shout and bray to bolster them. Not this time. The noise was incredible. And it was so loud, it was actually sometimes hard to tell what was being said. That wasn't put on. That was Tory MPs clearly loving it. All Starmer got out of that PMQs today was the fact that he has been able to ask Sunak directly to explain how his planned £46 billion tax cut was going to be funded, and Sunak refused to answer multiple times. This allows Labour to claim that if the Tories win the next election, they're either going to put up other taxes or cut pensions. And that will be a reasonable claim because Sunak has refused to rule either out. When Starmer asked how abolishing national insurance is going to work, other tax rises or pension cuts, Sunak could have responded, "The details will follow, don't you worry, but it is not going to involve a cut to pensions." But he didn't say that. So Labour can say that it might. But that's for later, for the general election itself. Being clear when that time comes, Sunak's going to have to say something. He'll either have to drop the policy, in which case Labour presents Sunak as chaotic and haphazard, or he'll have to say how he'll pay for it, in which case the cost is not going to impress the people he's trying to win over. Because consider this, there are those who argue, well, maybe we should just get rid of national insurance. It's had its day and just fold it into income tax. Not get rid of it and drop the overall tax revenues, but fold it into income tax, just combine the two together, right? But there is a difference. National insurance is not just another form of income tax. You know, retired pensioners do not pay national insurance, but they do pay income tax if their pension is above the threshold. So such a policy would raise the tax rate of pensioners, the single most important voting bloc for the Tories. And as for cutting pensions to pay for it, well, forget about it. So this option won't be great for Sunak either. The third choice, I suppose, will be Sunak could decide to maintain the policy, but refuse to say how he'll pay for it. Just say, oh, we'll do it when the economy allows. That's sometimes said. Now, that would be interesting because Labour will be presenting fully costed spending plans of their own come the general election, and the Tories will not. The Tories generally like to claim that Labour's spending plans don't add up. But this time, Labour will be able to direct the same accusation at the Conservatives, and it will be true. And it'll be true in a way that ordinary people can understand. You know, if Sunak is going to claim £46 billion worth of tax is just going to disappear, he has to say I was going to pay for it, doesn't he? So although this is the right button to push for Starmer at some point on a regular basis, it was completely ineffective today. Like I said, maybe anything would have been. The Tories think they've got Labour distracted again with the Rayner story, and we're about 2 weeks away from the vital local and mayoral elections. We're basically at peak party political levels of tribalism here. But I do wonder if maybe Starmer, you know, maybe he would have been better having a pop at Tory party discipline. Given that Starmer characterised the attacks on Rayner as being motivated to shut down a working class woman, I wonder if he might have segued into asking about double standards last week from Rishi Sunak. He could have pointed out that last week, 2 different Conservative politicians supported the idea of people voting Reform UK in Ashfield, in other words, against their own party. Now, Starmer could then have asked, so why did you sack the female politician for doing this, but no action is to be taken against the male politician who did so? That may have worked better for putting Sunak on the back foot, but maybe it wouldn't. Maybe no matter what Starmer would have asked, it would have been, oh, Jeremy Corbyn, Angela Rayner. You know, maybe the Tories are sufficiently focused with the local election around the corner to close ranks no matter what's thrown at them. And maybe we'll get no sense out of PMQs at all until sometime next month. Maybe not even then, because then we'll be looking ahead at the general election. Because today I really showed what PMQs is about. Never mind what people think it should be about, what it's actually about. There is no way to turn it into a genuine way for MPs to question the Prime Minister. You know, people will say, well, why don't they make him answer the question? Who? Who can decide whether or not the Prime Minister's answered the question? Who will be the arbiter that you would trust implicitly in all situations? There isn't one. You can't trust the Speaker. I'm not saying the Speaker is fundamentally untrustworthy, but, you know, you're giving a subjective judgment to a person. Like, what are their qualifications? If the Prime Minister chooses to engage in good faith and the questions, even from opposition MPs, are asked in good faith, then yes, PMQs works as it's supposed to work. But the chances of those things happening is remote, and I don't really see any way of compelling them to do it. There's nothing to be done about it. But at the same time, you wouldn't stop it either. Apart from the fact the Prime Minister who decided to stop it would look like they're hiding from scrutiny. I mean, you need the Prime Minister to come to Parliament on a regular basis. Not all countries do that with their head of government. I think it is important. You have to have the opportunity to at least ask the questions and then point out to the public that they're not answering if they're not answering, right? But when the Prime Minister is in a weak position, but their party is motivated to support them, you know, today's, I suppose, what you're always going to get. The Prime Minister resorts to childish playground taunts. The government benches howl their approval like baboons. I just wonder if any of them will be thinking that they're going to pay a political price for not having thought through the £46 billion hole in their tax plans before the election. Sunak might not care. He may just see today as a good day, got through it, he'll be beaming now, takes any win he can get. But the MPs who still want to be MPs for a few years to come, I wonder if they're looking ahead to where this policy leads them. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.